Hello, this is Chef John from Foodwishes.com with Italian wedding soup. If you grew up in the Northeast and are Italian or know Italians and went to weddings, you probably had this soup. So what I'm going to do is take a beef soup bone, a beef shank. You want to look for one that has a nice big piece of marrow bone in it. I'm going to brown that on both sides in the soup pot and a little bit of vegetable oil. I'm going to add the classic mirepoix, celery, carrots, onions. I'm going to add a couple quarts of cold water. Okay, I'm going to throw in a bay leaf, a few cloves of garlic, some black peppercorns, and we're going to make just a simple beef stock. We're going to bring this up to a simmer and then back the heat down just so it does that. A slow, gentle simmer for like 4 or 5 hours. You're going to simmer it until the meat falls off the bone. You're going to add more water if necessary to keep the level sort of around what you started at. I want to end up with about a quart of beef stock. Okay, so while our stock is working, I'm going to make the meatball mixture. This is boneless beef short ribs that I want you to put in the freezer till they're firm. Then I want you to cut it in cubes, put it back in the freezer until it's just almost frozen. It shouldn't be hard, but it shouldn't be soft. All right, it should be just very, very firm and cold to the touch. All right, so half frozen, I'll say. So as the meat is firming up in the freezer, let's get our wet ingredients ready. I have an egg, some crushed garlic, some fresh Italian parsley, heavy cream, the secret ingredient. All right, give that a whisk. Then I'm going to add Parmesan cheese and fresh breadcrumbs. That's the inside of a loaf of Italian bread, 1 cup, that I just pulsed on and off in a food processor to make a fresh breadcrumb. Very important, you don't use dry breadcrumbs. It won't be as tender. All right, the meat's been in the freezer about 15 minutes, so it is firm to the touch, not frozen, firm. I'm going to add my salt and pepper, and I'm going to pulse that on and off until it resembles like a sausage mix, so like a coarse grind. Because it's cold, it's going to work. Add the breadcrumb mixture, and we're going to keep pulsing on and off until it basically comes together like a ball. Now you're thinking, wow, that's going to be really tough and overmixed. It's not. Just relax. Because you're using such cold meat, and because of that cream and fresh breadcrumb mixture, these meatballs are going to be so tender. All right, so refrigerate that. I have a bunch of kale. I'm going to take the stems out. Very simple, just pull it right out. I'm going to give that a rough chop. The other ingredient is something called pastina. Little tiny pasta. In fact, these are shaped like stars. Look at that. So cute. Look at that fingerprint. All right, I'm going to strain my beef stock. That took like 5 hours. And like I said, I had about a quart when I was done because some evaporated. I'm going to add to that a quart of chicken broth. That's right. It's going to be half beef broth, half chicken broth, which makes the ultimate Italian wedding soup. And what may seem kind of minor, but is really important, about a teaspoon of tomato paste. All right, bring that to a simmer. Taste for salt and pepper. I'm going to add my kale, and I'm going to let that simmer for 15 minutes. In the meantime, perfect opportunity to make our meatballs. I'm going to use a little tiny sorbet scoop here and just form them into little balls. You can roll them in your hands if you want, make them neat, or you could just scoop and have them irregular. It doesn't really matter. But I like those little scoops for that kind of a job. Makes it really easy, and they all sort of come out the same size. And by the way, this is kind of a big batch of meatball mixture. I only used about half for the soup, and I saved half for spaghetti and meatballs. So you can just refrigerate any extra. All right, the greens have been simmering for 15 minutes. I'm going to add a 1/4 cup of the pastina. I'm going to let that cook for 5 minutes. It's not going to be totally cooked, but the pasta will almost be cooked. At that point, I'm going to carefully slide in our meatballs. Come on, stupid inertia. All right, those are in. Give it a stir, and that simmers for 15 minutes. By that time, meatballs cooked and tender. Pasta, very tender, and slightly has thickened the soup. All right, shouldn't be thick, just a little bit of, heavier viscosity in the broth. Not a thickness, a richness. And check out this great final shot. Sure, it's out of focus, but at least the lighting's bad. Sometimes I like to garnish this with just a little bit of fresh black pepper, maybe a little extra Parmesan cheese sprinkled over, and that's pretty much it. It is so delicious and comforting, and those meatballs are so tender. You just gotta give this a try. Seriously, so good. And don't wait for a wedding to make it. It's not a hard recipe. You can make the meatballs ahead of time and so forth. Give it a try. So delicious. All the ingredients are on the site. And as always, enjoy.